Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? I wanted to do a quick update. I know I started with the first video. But basically I was going to do the first video just showing you how I'm rearranging the studio. And I still got like a bunch of cables in there, stands, so it's still messy in here because I'm still reorganizing. But the changes I made was I had two keyboards against the wall over here, and I moved them over here so that way all my keyboard rags are all in one spot. So that just makes more sense, so I don't have to keep. I can just you know, do what I need to do with the keyboards here. And I took my mixer out the rack and put my mixer there. I'm going to get an actual rack. The rack's going to actually be on the stand, you know, and so forth. And I'm just going to put the rack and everything over here, so that way I can control all my keyboard mixes and send to the console. Now, what I've done is the console is still in the same place, but all the racks that were under here are now against the wall. And I've taken a lot of the power supplies that was in here and the ADATs that were in here. The ADATs are going to go in a rack over here, be closer to the snake, because I actually, not the snake, but the patch bay, because I moved the patch bay right here. And so is my interface. My interface was up top, now it's down there. I also put my HD 24-track recorder there, and the ADATs. I just wanted all the recording sources in one spot. And then I just took some of the preamps that were all over the place. I put them all in one spot, so all my preamps are well essentially located, my EQs, my reverbs. I'm going to be eventually taking that Behringer V amp out along with this Behringer bass V amp and put it in a rack over there so it can be plugged in against the wall over there, so they can, guitar player, bass player can plug into that if they want to choose to use it. So I'm just basically rearranging. Everything else is still generally the same as far as the computers until I move this desk out, and I'm going to get a couple of small computer desks, and this large office desk is going to go in the other room. That's going to give me some more room. All this cheap phone, all this cheap stuff that's on the wall, I'm still going to make use of it, but it's coming down. All that's going to come down. I'm actually going to get acoustic panels and diffusers. So it's still, this is stage 2. What's going on? Also, I'm going to explain the patch bay flow right quick. What I decided to do, you guys excuse the, I still got cables all over the place because I still got a lot of stuff to still hook up. But move this out the way for now. These cables. I got my little electrical kits because I'm about to start wiring up my ground. There's my ground wiring cable right there. And what I still have to get for all my racks, there's these things called rack isolation tabs, or what we call Humphreys. I still gonna have to get all of those for all the rack gear. So that's next. I'm also, what's going to happen is I'm going to lift the ground on every piece of gear that's plugged in. Instead, in the 3-prong ground, they're going to go with these right here. So I got to do every piece of gear that plugs in to that has the 3-prong ground. That's going to be lifted because everything's going to go to one ground system. So I'm going to put a ground on every piece of gear that's in the rack. All the gear, everything's going to go to one central ground system, so it kills any noise. So I got to buy, I don't know, probably about 50 of these. I only got like 6 or 7 of them right now, but I get about 50 or 60 of them. Then I'm going to get rack isolation tabs, and what that's going to do is that's going to isolate the racks of gear from the metal rail. Because what's happening is, because your ground not only grounds through your plug, but it also grounds through the chassis of the gear. So there's rack isolation tabs that separate the gear from the metal tab. That's going to eliminate noise. And I'm going to do that for all my rack gear. That's next. So those rack isolation tabs, and then of course creating a ground, which that's why I got a gigantic roll of ground cable. And then I'm gonna have a rod in the ground outside the house that's gonna go to that. That's coming next. Lastly, this stand out the way. Lastly, this is the patch bay, and you can see I got majority of the stuff hooked up except for quite a bit of, it's just some gear that's still not hooked up. But I'm going to try to explain the reason why I did it like this. I took this right here, and this is going to be in a rack that's going to be right here, because I'm not building a wall. I'm not going to build a wall, so I'm going to put it in a rack. And so what's going to happen is anything that's plugged in, this part of the room behind the console is considered the live room, technically, even though I don't really have enough room for a real live room. But this is technically the tracking portion where vocals are going to be done, where all my keyboards are going to be played and so forth. So what's going to happen is I created a panel. I'm creating a panel where all my everything that's going to plug in is going to plug in with, that you would normally do if you walked into a recording studio. You would walk into the live room, and that's where everything would plug into a panel on the wall. Same concept, except I don't have a wall, and this is now running. That same panel concept is now going to run out, and it's running into the patch bay here. And then this patch bay is normal to continue into the console here. Okay. All right. So now I can monitor the recording on these channels. I also have some direct out cables to come on a direct out that's going to go into a patch panel here, patch bay here, and the output is going to go into, it now goes into the interface here. So now that's going to the DAW, which is going to be the DAW in my computer over there, so I can record into Studio One, Cakewalk, Reaper, whatever DAW you decide to use. The outputs of the outputs of the interface, which are these, are now returning back into the patch bay here, and that's that row here, and it then returns back into the console. These channels over here, 24 outs, 1, 2, 3 is 3 cables. 3 DB25 cables, 24 channels out, and that's going into all the line ends of, so I can actually monitor all my outputs into the console. Right now I just have insert cables on the buses, and this particular is all my inserts for that rack, for inserts. Now I'm gonna kind of do a walkthrough so you kind of get the idea. So what's going on is this top row would be basically the patch bay that would handle everything coming in from the live room, and out of the live room into, because you go out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, you know, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. You go outs on the top, ins on the bottom. It's coming out of the live room into the console. Okay. The second row is the outs of the interface into the console. So I'm going to put a script. So I'm just going to say, you know, I'm just going to mark the patch bay. This one is going to be out of the, basically out of the direct outs. The direct outs are going into the interface for recording. And then the next out, these right here, this row is my row of mic, of all my mic pre's. This one's set to, this instead of being, these are set to normal / half normal. This patch bay is set to through. So the tops are not connected to the bottoms. So the out preamp 1, which would be my Avalon. And then that's the input of the, so I can, instead of, the reason why I have it that way, so let's say I'm coming from the live room and I want, instead of running a microphone that would be normally to go into the console, I can run a cable into this preamp, which will go here. The output of that preamp then can go into the console. Or I can run it directly into the interface if I wanted to do it that way and not use the console at all. This next row, so these are all my mic pre's. This next row is going to be all my EQs and or exciters and stuff like that. This bottom row is going to be more compressors. I'm going to get 2 more patch bays because I need them for other gear, because I will be getting a few more pieces, and now my studio will be complete on gear. And then these are going to be my sends. Send and returns from the console. Right now I just got these 8 for the bus sends, but I'm going to do the rest of these are all going to be all channel sends. So I can send and return a piece of gear on a bus, or I can send and return on a channel. Once that is complete, so a lot of people are like, well, man, that's a lot of, why would you do that? Well, it's like anything else. You want to be able to create signal chains on recording, and you also want to be able to create signal chains for mixing. And you don't always want to put a compressor on just your buses. Sometimes you want to put a compressor on a particular channel. Like, say, for example, channel 1 would have my kick, right? Well, I might want to run a send from this channel into this compressor right here. And I might want to use this for a compressor for a kick. Or I might want to use this particular compressor for kick. Or whatever I want to use, send a return. It's the same way if you would insert a plug-in on a channel in your DAW. It's the same concept except you're using real gear. Instead of plug-in. Using the actual hardware piece of gear. And that's the concept. So, and also, not only would I create sends and returns to put certain pieces of gear, certain EQ or whatever, on a channel, I also have it on the buses, so I can have bus, like I might want to put an overall compressor, like for example, I might want to use compressor on the actual drum bus. All my drums would probably come to buses 1 and 2. And 1 and 2 would have, I can insert a piece of gear here on my buses. Same thing. And all my master bus, same concept. And, and you get the idea. So, basically, my patch bay flow is going to be the same. It's going to be the same workflow as if you went into a commercial studio. So this is update part 2. what I'm doing, like I said, I gotta get some more ground lifts. I run my cable there, and I gotta get some rack isolation tabs, and that'll take care of the grounding issues if I have any grounding issues. And I'm going, you know, once I get everything done and cleared up, then I will let you hear. I'm gonna try to do my best to let you hear what it sounds like with everything set up now that I've rearranged the studio. So that's the concept. So that's what I'm doing so far. So this is part 2. So now I have my racks against the wall and here. So that's going to do it. So thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.